The book of Revelation says, "The spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ." This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy Reality News app. Get it now.
Morning, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Inquisition Update. My name's Tom Fress, and I'll be your host for the next hour. You're listening to Inquisition Update on FirstAmendmentRadio.com. Thanks for tuning in. We'll get right to business this morning, where we concluded yesterday in the book Rome and Civil Liberty by James A. Wiley. James A. Wiley is telling us now about Rome's sappers and miners. This is the method by which Rome infiltrates and then insidiously and eventually conquers a nation and makes it Roman Catholic. These are the machinations of Rome. This is how Rome works publicly and secretly to undermine Protestant nations. It's very important information, and it's detailed, and we'll attack it one item at a time, and hopefully the listeners will be able to see what was going on in Great Britain at the time of the writing of this book and see that the very same things are happening today in the United States of America. History is repeating itself, and we need not to be confused about how Rome is toppling our Constitution and our laws and replacing them with Roman Catholic canon law. Replacing our elected government for a prescribed government, a papal government. Outrageous as it may sound, it's only because of our ignorance that it sounds outrageous. This is so predictable as to be obvious for those who are aware of history. Now, this is the history that will open our eyes. Rome's sappers and miners. We'll begin in the last full paragraph on page 88 and proceed where we concluded yesterday. Speaking of these Roman sappers and miners, and I explained yesterday, I'll do it again today for those who didn't hear. Sappers and miners is a phrase that's not really used today. It's kind of archaic. What he's talking about are infiltrators. Okay, sappers and miners are those who work underground, and miners, those who collect information on those who are undermining the foundations of a nation. Sappers and miners. Today we would call them infiltrators. All right. Speaking of these sappers and miners, Wiley says, "Here it plies silently, but ceaselessly, the mattock and the spade." In other words, the pick and the axe and the shovel. Okay? It's an analogy for undermining or digging or mining under the established system of a country. It works mole-like underground, and hour by hour is advancing its trenches nearer our walls and sinking its mine deeper under our Constitution. It besieges deathbeds. Okay? We explained possibly yesterday that the priest, and we've even, James A. Wiley explained even earlier, that one of the most important times in a person's life, according to the Roman Catholic priest, for the benefit of the church, is a person's deathbed. That's where Rome really gets her finances. Okay? The priest interjects himself into the formation of an elderly person or a sick person's will and testament, and hopefully to gain a large windfall for the church. Never mind the needs of the widow and the orphans, but the dying man is pressed by the Roman Catholic priest to make a large sum bequest to the church for spiritual or ecclesiastical favor. In other words, if you will give us so much money, we will say masses for you and get you out of purgatory quicker. Okay? You won't have to writhe in the flames as long if you give us a lot of money or your property. Without care for the widow or the heirs, the church tries to insinuate itself in the most advantageous time in a person's life, when they're on the deathbed. Now, these sappers and miners, Rome's underground, Rome's secret operations, besieges the deathbeds. It erects nunneries. Okay? This is how they finance their nunneries. They erect nunneries to which certain teachers in ancient times, it, quote, leads silly women captive, laden with pelf, that is, money, and houses them comfortably for a consideration. So even the nunneries are a source of revenue for the church. Now it says it opens schools for Christian instruction, in which it takes care to initiate the youth in that one fundamental point of Christianity, and that is to be read Catholicism. As a living writer on the papacy calls it, the primacy of Peter. Okay? The primacy of Peter is literally means the primacy of the Pope, because the papacy claims to sit in the seat of Peter, to be the successor of Peter. So this is what's taught in the Roman Catholic schools, that fundamental point of Catholicism, which is that the papacy is the primate of the world, and it strives to impress them with the prosperity that they may be expected to attend them may be expected to attend them through life if they early begin the habit of praying to the Mother of God. Okay? So this is the indoctrination young Roman Catholics get in the Roman Catholic schools and churches, that they are guaranteed prosperity early and throughout their lives if they pray to the Mother of God. Okay? And we know God has no mother. Common sense dictates that God has no mother. Jesus had a mother, but she was not the mother of God. She was the mother of Jesus. Now, that's not saying that Jesus is not God, but we're talking about a perversion in the Roman Catholic Church, which causes those who are inept in the Scriptures to pray to a deity, a female deity, which was done in Babylon and throughout all the pagan religions. It's a perversion of the truth, and it's used at great advantage for the Roman Catholic Church. First, it draws you away from Christ and into error, and then into a system of Roman Catholicism that prospers through ignorance. So, this is what is taught early and throughout the life of a Roman Catholic. Prayers to the Mother of God, that she is somehow a co-redeemer with Christ, and that Christ got his sinlessness through her. She was the one who was born immaculate and without the stain of sin, and she bore Jesus under that character. And so Mary becomes the principal savior in Roman Catholicism. And this may shock people who are listening and don't know anything about Roman Catholicism. This is easily researched on your own. So we're not saying anything that's not been well understood about Roman Catholicism for over 1,000 years. So we'll continue now. He says, It is attempting to engraft itself upon the literature, the arts, and the fashionable amusements of the age. And I touched on that just a little bit. I did a poor job of it, I confess. But Rome insidiously and almost, what's the word? Subliminally teaches Roman Catholicism in the most subtle ways, evidences of which are seen in literature and arts and fashionable amusements of our age. Hollywood and the movies are literally dripping with Roman Catholic teaching. And it's never presented as Roman Catholic teaching, but nonetheless, the information is absorbed through the print and through imagery and the arts and through amusements, entertainment, Hollywood, and it's all anti-biblical. Okay? This is why there's so much rebellion in the country. People don't read their Bibles enough. If people read their Bibles and understood the Scriptures, they would be shocked at what they see in these amusements and in the arts and in literature. But being deaf to the Scriptures, Rome is free to promote error through the indoctrination of literature and arts and amusements. This is the purveyor of Roman Catholicism. You see, if a Roman Catholic priest came to your house and began to suggesting certain things about life that contradicted the Scripture, you might contend with him if you knew anything about the Scripture. But if it's put in a certain way in your favorite television program, your favorite news broadcast, your favorite articles of art and entertainment, well, then certainly you wouldn't contest it, because that would destroy your enjoyment, wouldn't it? This is how the miners and the sappers of the Roman Catholic Church pervert the mind and subject the conscience to errors and lies. Okay? Now he says that so it may inject its leprous distilment. Okay? Its leprous distilment into the mind unawares. It sends its spies into Protestant families. You have to ask yourself, do you have a close family friend? Someone you dearly love? Are you certain that they're not just spying on you? Now, I'm not trying to be a fearmonger. I've been accused of this. This is ridiculous. People accusing me of being a fearmonger. We're not trying to cause people to fear. We're educating people. This is the system Rome has always used. To count on one of their own to befriend a Protestant family and to just keep an eye over it and inform the priest, so that if perhaps an opportunity arises where they find possibly a conflict in the family or some disturbance or some wealth that Rome might avail herself of. Okay? And it's all done apparently with no outward appearance of subversion or any such thing. This is just the system Rome uses and has always used it. It is attempting to engraft itself upon the literature, the arts, and the fashionable amusements of the age, so that it may inject its leprous distilments into the minds unawares. It sends its spies into Protestant families. It circulates industriously the tale of scandal, okay, rumors. The industrious use of the rumor mill is how the Vatican, how Roman Catholics, sappers and miners disrupt Protestant families. Okay? It labors to sow strifes in families. Okay? It works carefully to sow dissension and disagreement and family feuds. Look, a Protestant family if it truly loves one another as they love themselves, they're a harmonious unit, and it's hard to break them. So Rome strives to break up Protestant families, to break down the spiritual power of the house. Okay? This is just one of Rome's age-old tactics. And through the confessional, it molds the declamation of the mob orator. Okay? You probably have been all told all your life that what is said in the confessional box of the Roman Catholic Church, when one confesses his sins to the priest, that what is said in that confessional is sacrosanct. Nothing could be further from the truth. It's a data collection system. And though a person's personal identity might not be revealed, it is data collection. And whatever the priest can deduce, collecting all this information from all the confessors that come to the church, they can make some very valuable assessments. And if the Roman Catholic Church has an agenda, which is always political, it can use the information it gathers from the individual confessors in the Roman Catholic Church and then use that information to instruct a powerful orator in the community. You know, the one that everybody likes to invite to their graduation services or some festive occasion. Everybody likes to sit back and listen to someone who is well spoken, an expert on every subject, a great moralist, a great orator. And it's these people that can direct the consciences of their listeners. Now, if the information that's gathered out of the confessional box can be given to that orator with the Roman Catholic agenda attached to it, well, that information becomes, just makes this orator even more interesting. And he appears to be harmless. He appears to be a great entertainer and a great educator, but he is insidiously moving the minds of his listeners. And Rome knows about the bully pulpit and how to use that popular speech to control or to make, to influence the opinions of the masses. Okay? Now, where do we find this most prevalent today? Well, in the mainstream media. That's the mob orator. You turn on the cyclops on the wall, and you see these beautiful mouths and these beautiful faces directing your conscience and framing the debate in such a way that you have to choose either one way or another, and either way benefits the Romish system. Okay? This is how the attitudes, the opinions of the nations are fashioned by this Romish system. Okay? They infiltrate Protestant families, circulate industriously tales of scandal. They labor to sow strifes in the families. Of course, the Roman Catholic Church says, the family that prays together stays together. That's the public face of Roman Catholicism. But underneath, the sappers and miners are sowing strife in Protestant families. And it says, through the confessional, it molds the declamation of the mob orator. Public opinion is fashioned by the Roman Catholic Church, whether you realize it or not. Now it says it regulates the speeches and the vote of the senator. Okay? Whenever you see a senator or a congressman on television, he is expressing by fair speech a political position. And that's always given to him through his advisors, through his confidants, those who have sought his ear privately. That's how his attitudes are fashioned. That's how his speeches are fashioned. And that is how his vote is given, after being influenced by Rome's sappers and miners. Okay? You think the senator has your best interests at heart? He'll give you every reason to believe he does. It will appear as though his first concern is his people, his constituency. But he's just an instrument of Rome's agenda. He is an instrument of Rome's indoctrination of the people, so that they of their own free will go along with papal agenda. Okay? The senator is not your friend. The senator only appears to be your friend. He appears to be a governor of, by, and for the people. But common sense tells you that as time goes by, we lose more rights. We're more bound to the government. We're more dependent upon the government. The government has become a nanny, and you're not allowed to think independently. You're not allowed to read your Bible and contest these people on a biblical grounds, because that's called bigotry. Okay? So they've literally made you of no count whatsoever. The issues that they deal with on a daily basis in Washington are presented to be way over your head. And you must depend upon these experts to take the best care of us. And you literally become lemmings, following your leaders right over the cliff. That's Rome's sappers and miners. Now it builds magnificent cathedrals, rich in the glory of nave and transept. The nave is the main body of the church from the entry all the way forward, where the people sit in the Roman Catholic cathedrals. Very, very costly and ornate. Incalculably expensive to build and maintain. And then at the end of the nave is the transept. That's a crossways, the interruption in the building that goes from left to right across the front of the nave. In other words, to make the church have a cruciform. In other words, look like a cross. Okay? This is to pervade the idea that it's a Christian church. Well, it's not a Christian church at all. It's the church of Antichrist. All right? They go to great expense fashioning their churches under the ancient old rites of the Roman Catholic Church. Even the form of their cathedrals takes on pagan representatives. It's not Christianity at all. Now, he says it builds magnificent cathedrals, rich in the glory of nave and transept. If you've ever been in a Roman Catholic cathedral, my words are wasted on you. You've seen it for yourself. He says of painted glass and silver shrines, and enacts within scenes not unworthy of Drury's days of old, in the hope that some who have come to gaze may retire to pray to the Diana of Rome. Okay? That's to whom they really pray. They call her Mary, but it's always been throughout history the mark of paganism to pray to a female deity. Okay? The Mary of the Roman Catholic Church is not one whit different than the Diana of pagan Rome. They've just Christianized those ancient pagan gods. And Mary has become the principal god of the Roman Catholic Church. James A. Wiley knew this at his time, and it's always been known among Bible-believing Christians who read the Scriptures and can immediately detect the error and the counterfeicy of the Roman Catholic Church. Now, it has poured a swarm of Italian priests of all orders and garbs into our island. Some in scarlet hats, that's the cardinals, and some in cowls, that's the priests. And some are shod, in other words, wear shoes, and some are barefooted. Now, does this make sense to those who have seen on their television or any other depiction of the Roman Catholic orders? They all dress differently. The priest obviously wears shoes, but the penitents, the monks, are barefooted. It's somehow a mark of their holiness, see? And some decked with surplice and others begirt with hempen cord. This also should be evident in your mind after having seen the differences in the Roman Catholic orders, which is one of the sacraments of the Roman Catholic Church. Now, I see we're coming up on break. We'll take a little break, and we'll come back, and we'll continue with Rome and Civil Liberty by James A. Wiley. You're listening to Inquisition Update on First Amendment Radio. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
I know you all want answers, and believe me, so do I, and I'll do my best to get them.
Despite Nicolas Cage's promise to do his best to get left behind rapture answers for us, don't hold your breath. Not everyone believes Left Behind is true prophecy. Some may even regard as conspiratorial the mainstream re-release of the Left Behind movie with actor Nicolas Cage portraying the main character as an attempt to further reinforce in the minds of all this perception of false prophecy in order to condition the masses for the play about to begin. If you want true Bible prophecy answers, get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. The author exposes the Latin rapture origin, the 7-year tribulation deception, true Bible revelation of Daniel's 70 weeks, the abomination of desolation, the restrainer, America in the Revelation, the image of the beast and the mark of the beast, and the truth about God's chosen people, and so much more about Bible prophecy. This book will shatter the Left Behind paradigm of future events. Get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
Welcome back from the break. You're listening to the second half hour of Inquisition Update on First Amendment Radio. If you'd like to support this program and keep it on the air, please support First Amendment Radio, who sponsors it. If you'd like to contact me, please do so by email. My email address is tom@seawaves.us. Now, James A. Wiley's revealing to us how Rome infiltrates a country, conquers it, and eventually brings it into total subjection to the Roman pontiff. That is their spiritual imperative. The papacy being the primacy of the church, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, it is the duty of every Roman Catholic to do his part, little as it may be or great as it may be, to help conquer every nation and bring every man, woman, and child on the planet into subjection to the Roman pontiff as the vicar of Christ. Okay, this is their religious Christian duty. And here's how it's done. The Vatican has poured a swarm of Italian priests of all orders and garbs into our island. Some in scarlet hats and some in cowls. Some shod and some barefooted. Some decked with surplice and others begirt with hempen cord. It has sent among us, too, the high-bred and scholarly Jesuit, whose business it is to penetrate into the drawing rooms of the great. In other words, the planning rooms of the kings of the earth. That's the Jesuits' theater of operations, in the planning rooms of the governments of the world. Now, you've heard about the planning rooms of the governments of the world, like the Bilderbergers and the Rothschilds and the Council on Foreign Relations, and on and on and on, the Trilateral Commission, the Rockefeller Agenda. All of these things are talked about, but the Jesuits are never talked about. They all work for Rome, ultimately. They are the planning rooms for the kings of the earth. And there's a Jesuit stationed in every one of them. And he orchestrates the planning rooms of the kings of the earth. Okay? And all of those in these big meetings, they're not all Jesuits, but most of them are High Knights of Malta, the Freemasons, and they're all concordant orders that are attached secretly to the Jesuit order. All right? They are the world's planners. They want a world government. And guess who they want to be the head of it? Any idea? The Pope of Rome. That's right. No, it's not an evil thing to talk about the Bilderbergers, the Club of Rome, the Knights of Malta, and the Freemasons and all. But you've missed the boat if you talk about all these things outside of the context of their attachment to the Vatican. You see, you can build a barn, but unless you put a door in it, nobody can go in. Well, the great conspiracy theorists, the great truth tellers in the world today build a magnificent barn. Everybody stands around and watch them build this barn, but there's no door in it. Well, the Jesuits are the door. Now your barn is functional. It has a purpose. And you can tell who the builder is. The Vatican. Okay? So, if you spend hours and hours and hours researching all this stuff, and you are limited to talk about the quote-unquote powers that be, as though they cannot be named or identified, that's because there's no door in the barn. But once you put the door in the barn, then you know what function, what purpose, and where is the focus of it? Who's directly responsible? Who is ultimately responsible for this global agenda? It's the papacy. Now, we're not allowed to say that openly because we might be labeled a bigot or an anti-Roman Catholic hater. But look, I'm willing to accept just about any condemnation to teach you the truth. There's only one hope for this country. If we understand who the enemy is, only then do we know how to fight it. And you know what we find out? When we know who the enemy is, we know how to fight it. Our Bible is our instruction manual. Okay? That's what it boils down to. Now, people who have a disdain for the Bible are going to be more comfortable just talking about the Bilderbergers, the Trilateral Commission, the Rockefeller agenda, and on and on and on, and being very, very informative about all these things, and experts in their field become very popular. Then they might make a lot of money. They might get a lot of hits on their website. They may draw all of your attention, but they haven't told you anything. Close, but no cigar. But those who love their Bibles, those who count on Christ to be the answer to our problem, all of a sudden he becomes very valuable to us when we realize the papacy is the Antichrist. You see, and then all this talk about the Council on Foreign Relations, the Bilderbergs, the Trilateral Commission, the CFR, all this stuff, it's important, but it falls now into the background as just supporting evidence that the papacy is driving this global agenda and all of the controversies. He is the one who is undermining our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, our national status, and trying to throw us into a global conglomerate under his sole authority. Now, do I make sense? Inquisition Update isn't just a Catholic basher. It's exposing the key element to understanding what is really going on in this world, despite all the disguises. Rome has given us all sorts of rabbit holes to go down. And some just like to make a career out of going down all those rabbit holes to see what's at the bottom. But they never really learn anything of substance until they realize who is at the helm of this global agenda. And we find out it's one man, the man of sin, just talked about in our Bible, the son of perdition, the Antichrist, the papacy. Now, our weaponry, which is not carnal, but spiritual, to the throwing down of strongholds, becomes apparent. It's our Bible. It's our history. And now we are effective warriors against this global agenda. And effective warriors for Christ. Wonderful, isn't it, for somebody to finally tell you the truth? The whole truth? It has poured a swarm of Italian priests of all orders and garbs into our land, some in scarlet hats and some in cowls, and some shod and some barefooted, some decked with surplice and others begirt with hempen cord. It has sent among us, too, the high-bred and the scholarly Jesuit, whose business it is to penetrate into the drawing rooms of the great, and to talk with equal grace and intelligence on all subjects, from the mysteries of canon law down to the newest novel or the last painting. Okay? They're experts on every subject. They can appeal to any discussion. They can appeal to any audience. They are the illustrious mob orators. Okay? Each has his place assigned him in Rome's invading host, and each has his part to play. And what is more, he takes care to play it to purpose. Everything Rome does is with a purpose, and no one is better at effecting that purpose than a Jesuit priest. He says, thus, by a plan of systematized efforts by which British Protestantism is attacked simultaneously on all points, is Rome pushing forward her aggression. And Britain is worth all the efforts which that church is now concentrating upon her. Popery knows clearly that it is here, in Great Britain, that the great conflict now waging all over Europe must be decided. What is the conflict now raging all over Europe at the time of the writing of this book? Protestantism's defeat of popery in Europe. The papacy has lost Europe because of the Protestant Reformation. Europe must be reconquered by the papacy, and it's the Jesuits, the sappers and miners of the Roman Catholic Church, whose mission it is to restore everything that was lost of the Protestant Reformation. And Rome knows she cannot reconquer Europe unless she first conquers England, the seat of Protestantism, the most powerful Protestant nation, the most influential nation of Europe. Okay? Now, the Church of Rome may triumph in Spain or in Austria and yet lose the day. But if she triumphs in Britain, she triumphs everywhere. The world is at her feet once more. So this is why Rome has sent her sappers and miners to Britain. She caught the Protestants asleep, she caught them in a weak moment, and she sieged Britain. Not with the Spanish Armada this time, but an armada of Roman Catholic priests, principally led by the Jesuits. Okay? This is where the Tractarian mission came from. This is where the Puseyite mission came from to Catholicize Protestantism. This is where Futurism came from. This is what lulled the Protestants to sleep. This is what gave Rome the opportunity in the first place. England was saturated with Roman Catholic priests and Jesuits, and they orchestrated a lulling to sleep of Protestantism in Great Britain, and then they tried to set up a shadow government. Okay? Now, Rome might do the same thing in Spain and Austria, but may eventually lose the war to reconquer Europe. But if she can defeat Protestant Great Britain, she has triumphed all over Europe. England is the key to conquering Europe at the time of the writing of this book. Now, I might be going a little bit beyond the discussion, but I just want to let you know that because of the colonial period, because Rome was ultimately not perfect in her conquest of Britain, she simply changed the battleground to the United States of America. In other words, better stated, Protestantism remained strong in England, even after this assault. Perhaps James A. Wiley woke up enough Protestantism in Protestant Great Britain to effectively sequester Rome's attempts in England, and to remain Protestant primarily in its laws and its beliefs. They maintained the Bible, they maintained their Protestant faith, weakened though it may have been through Puseyism and Tractarianism and other Jesuit infiltrations of the church with false doctrine, false prophecy interpretation, and on and on and on. But all of a sudden, Rome found it advantageous to move her operations principally to the United States of America, and first to get control of the government, and then through the government of the United States, with the vast, incalculable resources of this new land, to conquer not only England, but the rest of Europe and the rest of the world. So that's the position the United States is today. It's where England was back in 1860. The principal target of Rome was Great Britain, because through Great Britain, Rome hoped to reconquer all of Europe that was liberated by the Protestant Reformation. And that being totally unsuccessful, the theater of operations for Rome just transferred to the United States of America. And the United States of America became the global superpower. And so now it's the United States of America that's reconquering the world for the Pope. All right. Maybe I've gone too far in my discussion, but don't lose sight of what James A. Wiley is teaching us here. This is just vastly important information. Now, Rome has two kinds of soldiers. One division one division of her army she stations in the plain open. Okay? These are the cardinals, the bishops, the priests, the Roman Catholic hierarchy, who are decked in their famously beautiful robes and their holy attributes and their crosses and crucifixes. And, you know, they're the ones who are on every television program, every news broadcast. I mean, Fox has a permanent priest on the stage, Fox News. All right, this is the one kind of soldier that Rome uses, the openly Roman Catholic priest, decked in all of his glory, right? Conspicuously in view of the enemy. Anyone can see it. Right out there in the open. Now, where would you best expect to be able to hide a tree? Well, in a forest. You wouldn't think anything unusual about a tree being in a forest, would you? So Rome knows the best way to conceal her efforts is to be out in the plain open. Okay? Focus all your attention on these high-sounding, beautiful faces, oratorical voices, the frocks and the famous bishop's mitre, and all of the holiness and the pomp and the circumstances, and the well-educated priests. Okay? They're everywhere. Harmless, right? But more than anything, they're flattering. Oh, yes, they're flattering, aren't they? Takes all of your attention away from all the underground operations taking place by Rome. She's got two kinds of soldiers. One division of her army she stations in the open plain, conspicuously in view of the enemy, marshaled under banner and ensign. In other words, you know they're Roman Catholic. They make no bones about it. Okay? And they're seemingly harmless. They're seemingly famous orators. They're intimately concerned about all the things that we're all concerned about, and they're setting the agenda. We look at them as friends, right? Well, that's what we're supposed to look at them as. You can bet Inquisition Update doesn't see them as a friend. But to the ignorant of the United States, these people are just, well, they're consummate experts on everything, advisors of all of our leaders. All right? They're out in the open. They're under the banner of Roman Catholicism. They freely wear their bishops' mitres, their frocks, and their fancy garbs, and their rings, and their crosses, and crucifixes, and everybody can see it. Now it says, but she has her sappers and miners also. These carry neither banner nor ensign. In other words, there's no way to connect them to the Roman Catholic Church. No apparent way to connect them to the Roman Catholic Church at all. And certainly, he says, they never think of notifying their movements by the sound of a trumpet. So their operations are secret. They don't publicize them. Now, their modest post is underground, where they ply shovel and pickaxe. Okay? This is how they undermine, secretly, under the direction of the papacy, under the direction of the Jesuits. They're clandestine infiltrators, saboteurs of the Protestant nation. Okay? They work underground by shovel and pickaxe. In other words, sappers and miners. working steadily but stealthily at the foundations, while the Protestant, secure in the strength of his ramparts, is sound asleep. Okay? When did Protestantism go sound asleep in this country? Vatican Council II. They no longer saw the Roman Catholic Church as a threat because they long ago gave up the idea that the Pope is the Antichrist, the Roman Catholic Church is the synagogue of Satan. It's just another Christian denomination, and we've got to all unite under the name of Christ, or this country's toast, right? That's what was determined at Vatican Council II. So the Protestants just went to sleep. Protestant being those who warn the world that the Antichrist is the papacy. That's what died. That's what went to sleep. Okay? They're still defenders of Christ, but then Rome appears to be a defender of Christ too. So they got together on what they agree on, and they kind of put aside that which they disagreed about. Of course, Rome has always contended that the Pope's not the Antichrist. It's either, well, Nero back in the ancient pagan Roman Empire, or it's the future Antichrist that comes just 7 years before Christ's return. So the Pope has never taught that the papacy is the Antichrist, right? But the Protestants always did preach that the papacy is the Antichrist. That's where they differed. So they just put that aside. That's just too divisive. So they all became Christians together at Vatican Council II. They just plucked one eye out of their head. That's what the Protestants did at Vatican Council II. They just took an awl and stuck it in their right eye and just plucked it right out. Now they've got only one eye to look through. Myopic. Ecumenical. Myopic. And that's when Protestantism went to sleep. That's how Protestantism just laid down its arms, put tape over its mouth, plucked out one of its eyes, and tied both of its hands behind its back. So now it's just a papal agenda in the United States of America. And politics is her theater of operations. The Constitution is her objective, her military objective. And without help from the sappers and miners, the Jesuits, it could never have been done. They're the ones who authored futurism. Okay? Their modest post is underground, where they ply shovel and pickaxe, working steadily but stealthily at the foundations, while the Protestant, secure in the strength of his ramparts, is sound asleep. Vatican Council II. By and by, the crash of a falling tower or the yawning of some hideous rent suddenly awakens him. He becomes aware that his position has been attacked by finding that it is already carried. In other words, you're not going to wake up till it's too late. And that day may have already arrived. Rome went right to work after Vatican Council II. In other words, before that, they knew that they had Protestantism whipped, that futurism was fully accepted in the churches. The papacy had been effectively exonerated, and it was just easy then to bring up this Muslim boogeyman, this threat of terror, this global terror, and drive the Christianity all together in unity against it. Couldn't have happened without the sappers and miners of Rome. Could never have happened if historical Protestantism would have been maintained in this country. But it was completely destroyed by futurism. Okay? Rome doesn't always use carnal weapons to destroy her enemies. She uses false doctrine, false interpretations of Bible prophecy, hides from us history so that we can't do the math. Okay? He says, by and by, the crash of a falling tower. What was the crash of the falling tower? The fall of Protestantism, or the yawning of some hideous rent suddenly awakens him. What awakened Tom Friess was when he discovered how Protestantism had been destroyed and left Rome with no effective opposition in this country. And from that position, I was able to discover, as many others have and are, that Rome controls our government, as admitted by Francis Rooney in his book, The Global Vatican, as James A. Wiley feared of Great Britain. It's the truth. And we'll talk about it more next week. Thanks for listening.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.